Yay! Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Filmmakers Live. My name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach, and I specialize in helping filmmakers become fundraisers and entrepreneurs and be able to talk about money and produce their own movies and all of that good stuff. So I want to welcome you all. We talk about the business of film, and on the Filmmakers Life, I have filmmakers on who are quite far along in their filmmaking careers and who therefore can serve both as an inspiration and have practical ideas about how to build your career. Although I will say that even though I guess I knew this before I started the Filmmaker's Life, one thing that's really become clear from regularly doing these interviews is that no one filmmaker's journey is the same as any other filmmaker's journey. So, but ideally, you'll pick up some good tips about how to grow your filmmaking career. So I would want to introduce you all to Michelle Malley Campos, who is one of my fabulous clients. And she is coming to us all the way from Puerto Rico. Actually, we're having a very Caribbean day today because Emily, our filmmaker liaison, who many of you have met, is a filmmaker in Trinidad and Tobago. I am a half Trinidadian filmmaker in Miami Beach, which is a very Caribbean kind of place to be. And Michelle is in Puerto Rico. So we're having a very Caribbean day today. So welcome. I feel as though you and I have been talking a lot recently, which is my absolute pleasure. And so we're going to be getting to the point where we're going to be talking about the very exciting news that has happened recently. But before we get there, I'm going to start with my question that I always like to start with, which is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Joanne, for inviting me to this space. I've participated as a viewer, and it's super exciting to be here and to talk about these things.
Talk about you.
Thank you for the space. Since I have memory, I've wanted to make films. I think since I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, I wanted to make movies. I still have all these notebooks where I would write down my ideas. I knew what actors I wanted, or the title. I think even the rating. I had like this big picture idea of this concept of making movies. And my father was a big movie buff. Still is. I would always be able to have these conversations with him about movies, and he has this big passion that he passed down to me, and so yeah, it's like I live and breathe it. It's just what I've always wanted to do. I've always written. I've delved into acting, drama forensics, and worked my way into kind of understanding what it means to make movies. Oh, well then, okay, well, I want to direct, or I want to write, or I want to do this, I want to produce, and so it's been a very fun and interesting journey.
It's so fun to hear you talk about your father being a movie buff, because my mother and I talked about movies. I guess movies and politics was pretty much it. And I was just reminded the other day, my name is Joanne because she named me for Joanne Woodward. So I'm living my destiny, not as an actor, but and now it's become very clear. My father is a movie fanatic. He has the TV on watching something or other on Netflix, and at the same time he's watching something else on his iPad. He's watching two movies at the same time, and he just turned 90. And we have big conversations about movies and shows, and so really did come a lot from my parents as well. But
yeah,
it's funny that even though they didn't do that professionally or anything by any means.
no, right, yeah, my dad's a lawyer, he was a big theater person in high school. He was in all the theater, on all the plays. He went to college for theater, and then he segued into political science, and went into becoming a lawyer. Which there is some performance in litigation, so at least they're somewhat, they're connected, they're there.
But I think also it's something to do with because I didn't find out until right when my mother died that she had done a lot of community theater. I was too shy to do a lot of theater. Can you imagine? But no, but I was back then. And I was really surprised when I found that out. And so I think on some level, we're living out our parents' dreams.
Yes.
Right.
That
he went off to be a lawyer, and do something, sensible. I tried that. It didn't.
I've never been sensible. I did not listen to that.
So when you were like in high school and college, were you already studying film? Were you that clear?
Yes. In high school, actually, I love telling the story. I participated, my first kind of a workshop exposure to actually learning about film was when I was like in ninth grade. I went to these summer workshops in the Puerto Rico Museum. They were organized by these filmmakers, Marian Perez, Carlitos Fries, and Israel Lugo, who are filmmakers who are also my friends, who have made their films. And actually, Mariam and Carlitos also got projects approved with these funds. And we've, connected throughout, reconnected throughout all these years. And so it was very inspiring. It's so important also to have exposure very early in life to those kinds of workshops, to those kinds of educational things where you can learn how to do it, and also nurture an appreciation for film, and for the process and the collective effort that is film.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but the other thing I hear in that is having people who you can see and talk to who are filmmakers.
Yes.
I know for myself, growing up in London, there was a lot of distance between me and those people who did that stuff. It wasn't until I moved to Miami that it became a real thing for me, where I was in a room with people who were artists and, filmmakers or whatever. When I was in England, it seemed so much further away, but when I got to Miami, I was like,
it's accessible. It's accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible. Yes.
And to the point where they helped me with my application to NYU, where 5 of us from those was it 5? I think it was 5 from those workshops got into NYU.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So they created that pathway. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And it's crucial because in Puerto Rico, and I I'm sure in many other places in the Caribbean, and the United States, the closeness you can have to to what you were talking about, to something that you love, you want to do, and having kind of like a roadmap to how to do it, because I think initially before taking those workshops, I was more like thinking that I had to go to Juilliard, because I was very like more, oh, I'm gonna write, produce, direct, and act in my movies, and I'm gonna do it all, like. And I actually, went to visit Juilliard when I was looking for colleges, and I had this kind of, I wasn't really understanding like how it was divided, right? The concept of movie making. And what was interesting about those workshops is there was like a theater aspect of doing these theater exercises to nurture trust, group trust, and also get those juices flowing, creative juices flowing, and how we can create stories together, right? So I remember it very, very fondly, and with a lot of gratitude for that exposure, that initial, and that kind of, setting the road. It's like, okay, you have to do this, like and yeah, and through them I kind of understood, okay, yeah, I want to go to NYU. I love New York, I definitely want to have that experience of a big city, studying in there, making films there. And I immediately wanted to leave when I got there. I'm like, okay, done. I'm out. And I came back to Puerto Rico. It's like,
wow.
New York's great, but I don't want to live there.
And when you were at NYU, what do you think that you took away as a positive from that experience?
Definitely. I mean, I think, again, the accessibility, the closeness, because, I had great professors who are in the business. It's very kind of more business oriented, right? And the connections, and like getting, there was a lot of, like, for example, you could go and watch a Martin Scorsese movie, and Martin Scorsese was there talking about his movie, like for The Aviator, for example, like, I had that experience. And then suddenly, the accessibility and the kind of the how vibrant that city is, the cultures that are there. It's I don't know, it's a very interesting way to kind of, I don't know, educate yourself, or the higher education, like in it, instead of like in a campus, for example, when you're, because the city is your campus.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you're walking from your dorm, to the classroom, you're living in this super vibrant city, and you're going, and I would cross Washington Square Park every day. That first year that I lived right in front of the park.
One of my clients who went to NYU, it's interesting you say it was very business oriented. He felt that, and he went later than you, but he felt that it was very much geared towards getting a job in Hollywood, which is not what he was interested in.
Right. I think that's it has to do with what I meant. Because when I left, I had a job lined up as a personal assistant for this producer at this production company, and I would be getting her coffee and her laundry, and picking up kids from school and that thing. And I'm like, I don't think that's for me.
Right. So this is, I'm just being picky about this because I talk about the business all the time. So I do not think of getting a job in Hollywood as being the business of
right.
I mean, now, we've worked together, so you know what I'm talking about. But
I
don't think of getting a job in Hollywood as being the business of film, because it doesn't mean, it's not about being an independent producer, raising your own money.
No.
It's
working your way up,
that ladder.
So that's, and that's yeah, it's perfect. And I have a lot of friends who are very successful, directors in TV and everything, and it's awesome, and that accessibility, like being in New York, you can do those meetings, you can have that closeness to a lot of people in Hollywood or companies that you can do that process to like work your way up and be an assistant for like 5 years, and then et cetera, et cetera. So and I think that also coming from Puerto Rico and wanting to make Puerto Rican cinema in my language and finding my voice, and I didn't feel like I was fitting in in that dynamic. I didn't feel the need to prove to anybody that I could make it in New York. It's not me. But I don't regret my time there. I loved it. It was a very beautiful experience with its hardships, with the cold, and and New Yorkers being New Yorkers. I don't want to turn into a New Yorker. But yeah, I mean, I had such amazing experiences with that closeness to icons and so it's if it works for that route, right? And so like to come back home, and it might take longer, maybe. It's a slower path. I'm in an island, it's not where everything's happening, but I made my shorts, I did my music videos, I became a commercials director.
Are you good at dates? Do you remember what year you came back from NYU? What year you came back from New York?
Yes, 2007 I came back. 2007. I graduated a year early, so I was there from 2004 to 2007. I came back to Puerto Rico, and I started working actually in the company, the production company that I'm now representing as a director. I started as an intern, and started making my moves. I was always good at assistant directing since I was young. Like when I did a summer course at Northwestern when I was in high school, and I would always fall into the AD position. And so once graduated and back here, for the intern, production assistant, I would ask all the questions and be like very detail oriented, and so I kind of got pulled into the movie industry here in Puerto Rico, and not the local, but since we have tax incentives, there's a lot of Hollywood movies and series that come to Puerto Rico. My first film was Che, the Argentine, and a little bit of Guerrilla, directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Was that a Focus Features film? Do you remember? Was that a Focus Features film, Che?
Not sure. I can't remember.
I'm just remembering. I think it was produced by Laura Bicker.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes.
That oof, I used to bring Laura to Miami, and I got
wow.
Bickford,
right. Yeah.
And she so I haven't seen her for years, but to me she's a mentor, and she's one of the producers at Focus Features, and so I remember I would watch all the films when they came out, and I just remember the scene with Shay on a motorbike. I can't remember which country they were in. And there was another guy. There were two guys on a motorbike. And as soon as you said Shay, I can see that scene with the motorbike.
Yeah, we shot in Bolivia, and Mexico was. They went to Mexico before they came here, and then went to Bolivia for like a week or something.
Right.
I was in charge of all those visas.
Oh yeah.
Everybody their visas.
That's great.
Something like that. But yeah, so like that was I think I interned on a local film before that, but that was like the first movie that I actually worked on as a production assistant. Started off as everybody's personal assistant. I was, Soderbergh's assistant. I was, the AD / producer assistant. Robin Lechanu was an excellent UPM who I worked with, several movies that were shot here. She took me under her wing, and, I was dealing with contracts and all these different things. And so then with that local production group, I kept working in the office as a production assistant, and then eventually moved to the set. I was on set production assistant, then joined the DGA, second AD, and then first AD'd a few local movies here.
What are some other big productions you worked on?
Fast Five, I think, has been the biggest one. They were here for a month, and then I went with the core production team to Atlanta for a month. I think it was 2 months here and then a month there. I can't remember which one is it. Rum Diary was I think my first on-set movie. I was in charge of we fitted over 1,000 extras. Like the prep because it's a period piece, and I was in charge. I was a fittings PA, so I was in charge of receiving extras to get their fittings for and it was all this in this giant warehouse, and so we were like a month of fittings, and we would receive like from anywhere from like 50 to 80 people, 80 extras a day, and fill the voucher in the system. And then I had my friend who was in the costumes department. He would do the measurements, and these fantastic outfits with Colleen. She has won I think 2 Oscars, the wardrobe designer on Rum Diary.
Wow.
So, oh my God, what was your name? Colleen something. And then, you have this other costumer creating the dresses for Amber Heard, and it's, Colleen Atwood. Yes, thank you, Emily. Colleen Atwood, multi Academy Award, a wardrobe designer, costume designer. And after I also worked, I had a stint in the art department. I was a co-art department coordinator on Men Who Stare at Goats. That was an interesting experience.
Very interesting film. Yeah.
And then I let me think. Runner, which was with Justin Timberlake and Ben Affleck.
Oh, I'm a big.
Yeah, that was like 2012, I think.
I haven't seen that film, so I have to go watch that.
Yeah. What else?
It's fun though.
A couple series, Treasure Island. Yeah.
I had an experience of working on a major Hollywood film, and I learned some interesting things. The biggest of which was, I love to ask this question, but what's the first office to arrive on a major Hollywood project? The accountant's office. Yeah. And which
nothing is gonna move without that.
Which is the biggest office? The accountant's office. Which is the last office to leave? The accountant's office.
Yeah.
I mean, that made a big impression on me. And
that's how long you spend money on things.
That's right. There's no money to spend without the accountants being there.
No. Yeah.
And on that particular movie, I was in the locations department, and one of the things that they did was they sank a ship. They sank a ship, and it was going to
on purpose.
Yeah, on purpose. They sank a ship, and it was going to become part of the barrier reef. So all of the work that had to be done with the federal government and the EPA, and I mean, just phenomenal, the things that the locations department gets involved in.
Oh my God. The dark places they must go.
Creating barrier reefs, but anyway, yeah, it's fun to see that big, so big, where you're in your department and there's this huge stuff going on and you're just one little tiny department.
Yeah,
The whole,
like it reminds me, I also worked on 22 Jump Street. They came, I don't know if people have watched the movie. There's basically like the last third is in, I don't know, what do they call it, Puerto Mexico. So their last 2 weeks of shoot, or was it like a week? Oh my God, it was crazy. So they came to Puerto Rico. I was basically kind of local key set PA. I earned my team, and we were basically dealing with, a slow day was 400 extras. We had a 800 extra day on the beach in Condado, which is a very, very busy tourist area. And the directors, these wonderful guys, the directors of the Lego movie, they're a power dupla.
the Duplass brothers, yeah.
But so I think it was our last beach day, and we were pretending that Deadmau5 was DJing or whatever. We spread out all of these extras all over the beach, and these guys got the microphone. And they said, "Thanks, guys, you're wrapped." And we're like, "Everybody, go to holding." All my PAs had to run and beat all of these 400 extras, like stampeding to holding, because they have to get the clothes back,
Costumes back,
sign them out. And it's like, it's just like, everybody, go. But yeah, it's good times, very intense. We didn't break for lunch. It was crazy. But those big movies, they're a challenge, and it's interesting how especially those guys, how grateful and appreciative they are of the work that gets put into doing these crazy and huge scenes. And
oh, sorry, you're actually bringing up something that I see a lot, because I have lots and lots of different types of clients with different backgrounds. But when I have clients who have such a strong union background, working in the industry, one of the things that I see there's a real challenge, which is less so for other filmmakers, is that when you've been working in those massive budgets, how do you then go and make a $5,000-$10,000 short, right? How do you, and it's two things. One is the budget, and then the other one is the time. How do you carve out time when, work is, you work as a freelancer, and work is sometimes there, sometimes not there. Yeah. And so carve out that time for yourself to do your own work. Anyway, those are the things that I see a lot with people who work in the industry. How you get to actually make your own films.
I mean, particularly in Puerto Rico, work comes in waves, and it's very dependent on the tax incentives, and there's a change in government, and the tax incentives get put in a limbo, and then maybe there's a lull. But I definitely had to set boundaries and start. It's a good position to be in, to basically start to choose which project you're going to be in, here. And I'm sure it's the same, anywhere. It's very difficult to say no to work.
Yep.
And sometimes if you say no once, then, the other person that gets hired is the person that keeps getting hired. But you get to a point where you're kind of like an A-list of either ADs or PAs, and then ADs. It's like everybody wants to hire you, and then they make you feel bad if you say no, and then you accept projects that you don't want to accept, and then you have a bad time in those projects because there was a shift in the quality of projects that was coming to Puerto Rico, not necessarily the quality, but maybe the quality of the budgets. You know, you have these big budget movies, and then once streaming got into, because there, you know, there was a moment where there was a new union agreement that was for streaming, because streaming was new, it was untested. So there was this agreement that basically rates could be negotiated directly between the person. And so the rates lowered, and then it's kind of TV, it's a TV rhythm. So we're shooting like 8 pages a day. Like there's no time for, you know, for continuity. There's no time for me to go and fix the background, make it better. It's like, ugh. So for me as a filmmaker, it became unsustainable, you know, for my like mental health, to you know, to work in projects that that I felt that the creative process, or like, I don't know, it's a little convoluted conversation, you know, maybe for another time. It's you know, how the dynamic, you know, changes with the quality control, or like how we can, you know, do our job, right? You know, as particularly as a second AD who's in charge of the background, to paint with extras, to, you know, create stories that, you know, that don't distract from the main action, but, you know, bring reality into the thing. And so I went basically through, I think maybe like a 5-year process of trying to say no, and saying, okay, I'm done being AD, I want to direct, I'm done being AD, I want to direct, I'm done being AD, I want to direct. But that clashes with, you know, actually living. I need to pay my bills, you know? And there's an interesting thing when you work on series, when you work on union shows, it's good money. And I was able to save, and I funded my own shorts, you know? And then I would like be kind of, you know, I have this idea, I read it, okay, so this weekend we're shooting a short, you know, and then we get the people together and just, you know, make it happen. But basically you know, throughout my career, I was saving, working on everything, saying yes to everything, all these union shows, saving up all this money and then do my short films. But then the on-set dynamic, or the type of work ethic of these projects that I was accepting, just left me drained, without energy to create anything. Not even forget about the weekend, you know. I just want to like crawl like fetal position in my bed and just think about my choices in life. So
I think that was about when you and I met.
Right, pretty much. So yes. So how it's finding that balance between, okay, I have to pay my bills, I have to work, and creating, you know, and sitting down and writing scripts and pushing my career forward, because I don't want to be an AD, I want to be a director. Like, that's what I studied, that's what I've always wanted to do. And it got to the point where I wasn't enjoying, you know, the jobs that I was doing. So it's complicated. It's like, you know, it's how do you balance that? And basically I shifted towards commercials. And so I could grab a few commercials a month, you know, and I wasn't being able to save as much. But I was, you know, I always do my shorts, and maybe, you know, I have access to equipment, I have access to resources, you know, we can do this for like, you know, $3, let's do it, boom. But in terms of writing, of writing a script, you know, a feature-length script, you know, I've gone through, you know, I've written several where on those moments of inspiration that I can just sit down and bop, you know, and maybe have a first draft of, you know, 4 first draft scripts. And then Hurricane Maria happened. And for us here, I don't know if it's the same.
I think we should just stop for a moment. I'm not even sure everybody heard what you said. And Hurricane Maria happened.
Yeah.
And Hurricane Maria, anybody who has not lived through a hurricane, I doubt is going to really understand. I lived through Andrew. So, but when something, oh my God, I almost want to cry. But having a devastating hurricane like that, suddenly, you know, not being able to communicate with people, not being able to communicate with the rest of the world, things like not having water, not having food, not having electricity, not having, it's
for months.
Yeah.
Some people for over a year.
Yeah. I've told this story before, but after Andrew, one day I was working at Miami-Dade Community College, and one of the teachers and I were talking about a project we were doing, and so we finished up our meeting, and I said, I just want to make sure I have your phone number, and she burst into tears. And she lived in Homestead, which was where the eye hit, and it was over a year after Andrew. And my life was back to normal, and she still didn't have a phone. And that really hit me, because I had moved on, you know, but she hadn't. She had no house, she had nothing. And so Puerto Rico, you know, what was the year? What was the date?
Yeah, that was 2017, September 2017. And it's interesting because, you know, in a similar way with the pandemic, there's this sudden stop, you know. And obviously with you know, with Hurricane Maria, it was coming together, you know, taking care of each other, because no one else was, you know, coming to save us. So we lived a little bit of a independence moment of, you know, just kind of fending for ourselves. And the interesting thing that how this, you know, I do the segue, and this is how this script came about. I just realized
that I've been enjoying our conversation so much, I've probably gone over a little bit on time. So, oh my God. Anyway, here we are, Hurricane Maria. You write a script, then what happens?
Now I'm making my movie. What is it, 6 years later? But yeah, but it's like
what the story is. Tell everybody what the log line is of the script.
It's a testament to how, you know, getting shook really gets creative juices flowing in an interesting way. But basically, this script called Extranjera, which it means foreigner. It's the story about a public school teacher, a frustrated artist turned public school teacher, who had this big trip planned. He was basically going to leave Puerto Rico, and the hurricane interrupts her plans. And all she can think about is getting out of the island while everybody's, you know, coming together and figuring out, you know, how to continue life. She's like, I'm out. And she has this fantasy of reinventing herself together with this best party girlfriend she has that is living on the other side of the world. And she manages to get on a plane, gets to Taiwan where this friend's in. The friend stands her up. She doesn't pick up the phone. And she's like, okay, now what do I do? So it's a Puerto Rican in Taiwan, and she meets a colorful cast of characters that kind of present in a way an aspect of herself. And she has to face the consequences of her own decisions and kind of align her, you know, her intention with her action, and she decides to go back to Puerto Rico and be useful. And so basically that's the story. And the interesting thing is that first draft, so this is based, I had this trip to China planned, And right before Hurricane Maria, I was so fed up with with life, with film. I was like on the brink of just giving up on making movies. And it's directly related to the projects that I was working on. It's just, if that's what I have to do, if this is it, I don't want to be part of it. And I was just so angry and so frustrated. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm gonna go to China. I'll be back in a month. You guys, miss me or whatever. And then boom, my flight was on the day of the hurricane. I had my backpack, my giant backpack packed. I was like, this is not hitting us. I'm in a complete denial. That thing is gonna go. It's gonna go whoop. It's gonna go whoop. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna get on my plane. I'm gonna get the fuck out. And obviously that didn't happen. It was like a week and a half afterward that when there was no phones, nothing, and I get a call. I'm like, oh my God, this thing, what is this? It's working. And it was the airline. It's like, okay, we can put you on a plane tomorrow. And I started bawling. I like practically fell to the floor, and my mother like carried me. And it's like, okay, no, you go, because I was feeling guilty. I didn't. How can I leave? Well, how can I leave my parents? How could I leave my friends? How can I leave my neighbors? And it was this very existential crisis type thing. And my mother was like, no, you're leaving. One less mouth to feed.
Yeah, like, okay, food in China.
Yeah, right. Bring back food from China.
They have water in China.
Yeah. And basically, I went to China. I backpacked to China for a month by myself. And when you're by yourself trekking in the tiger leaping gorge, the sun's going down, you don't know if you're going to get to the place that you're supposed to get to. You really start thinking about the decisions that you make in your life. And so that was basically
Michelle, I know we've got to get to the grant. But
I know, right?
I have to say, I went to China and I was not on my own. My dad and my stepmom picked me up at the airport. And the first night we were there, we were in Pudong, which is across the river from Shanghai. And we're like, okay, let's go out for dinner. How hard could that be?
All the hard.
Go to my phone, like you want to say restaurant, but it's all in Chinese.
No, I got to hostels and like basically like translated showed it, and they translated showed it to me. I haggled with a taxi driver doing that at one time. It's like, no, this, okay, fine.
I got to the point where I would say, okay, watch me speak Chinese. Where is the bathroom?
I think I learned that actually. Ni hui shuo nu ma, something like that.
Nice. I only know how to say ni hao.
I was like, ni hao.
So anyway, just to speed it up.
Let's speed it up, yes.
I'll open it up for questions. So you wrote the script, you had a producer attached, you and I were working together. We were looking at this and that and this and that and this and that. And then out of the blue, Puerto Rico decides it's going to invest some COVID money into film, because Puerto Rico already has very strong tax incentives and tax rebates and things like that. But this was a separate pot of money. And they decided, and I think this is genius personally, but that the best thing they could do with their money was to invest it in film.
Yes.
As an economic driver for Puerto Rico. And then what happened?
So these are pandemic relief funds. And so yes, the $74 million were assigned to the Film Commission, the Puerto Rico Film Commission. They announced it late last year, and they basically had there's two like initiaties. There's the reimbursement and the disbursement. So the reimbursement, you get 75% of the Puerto Rico spend has to be local, local everything. And then there's this disbursement in stages, where if it's written, directed, produced, shot and post-produced and everything in Puerto Rico, then it qualifies for 95%. And these are grants, so we don't have to repay them. So this is definitely historic. And so it was an arduous process. And we just got approved last.
When did you start the process of applying? Do you remember?
I think it was January.
Oh, I thought it was a bit earlier than that, because I thought you got all the application in January.
Well, no. I found out about it at the end of last year, because I got a newsletter, connections, blah blah, and they publicly announced it in January. And then it's initially just send an email with the title and your budget and whatever. You get a meeting, so they can just kind of check, to make sure that you're eligible. And then you have to, you have 30 days to, might have been in February, because I sent everything in March.
Now
they gave you the huge list of documents that you have to get, and
the one thing I would say is that you have to have been very ready for this.
Yes.
So in order to apply for something like that in 30 days, it's pretty much impossible to be starting from scratch.
No.
So I feel as though a lot of the work I do with my clients, my goal is to have you prepared, and to be prepared for an opportunity like this that just comes out of the blue.
Absolutely.
But
definitely. In that sense, I feel like, meeting you, starting to work with you was like opportune moment to get me ready for this moment. Like, I had focused, throughout the pandemic on the script, getting the script ready, and the script was ready. And now, now let's, the resources that you provide for the pitch deck, to be able to, understand, get a working budget and be able to talk about the project in a business sense, less in an artistic sense. And also kind of tune into what they're looking for, because the guidelines are very kind of general, but just they're looking, for how many nights in a hotel, and how many jobs I'm going to provide, and this and that, and so it's like, and I'm bringing these people and all this stuff. So in that initial meeting where they're kind of checking off on a list of requirements, to be able to confidently talk about the project and talk about numbers and talk about money and talk about it in a way that has nothing to do with the artistic side of how I'm going to direct it with my vision, that's something that we, talk about in our sleep. So that is crucial, because also, I have to get the 5%, right? And so I have to find an investor anyways. So like, I have this guarantee now from the government, and then I can go to an investor to get that 5%. And to provide a cash flow, because this is disbursement in stages that we don't know how quickly it's going to happen. So just to, provide like a certainty that we can actually, go into production with cash flow, right? So definitely, I feel like we're almost coming up on a year, Joanne, I think, because we started working in August. Something like that.
Not bad. That's not bad. $1.28 million in 8-9 months.
Yeah. I mean, it's never going to happen again.
No,
it's a separate conversation.
No, don't say never, because you know why? Because every time a country, a state, a municipality decides to put money into economic development and use film to do it. And every time it's shown to be successful, more will happen. More will. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fingers
So
crossed.
this is a big experiment that Puerto Rico is doing kind of on behalf of all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are places now, I think it's in Minnesota, in a certain city in Minnesota, when you add the city incentives to the state incentives, it adds up to something like 70–80%. So places are trying it as a way to move out of poverty, and what a great way to do it, you know?
Yeah. So, exciting.
I feel as though what was great about our work together was getting you prepared and then being able to talk about the business, because those people who are checking off those boxes, that's federal money.
Yeah.
You know, and federal money is all about checking off the box. You have to, they're going to get audited. They're going to get double audited. They're going to get triple audited. It's federal money. That is taxpayer money that is going into making these films. And you have to be able to talk about the business in a really professional way. Otherwise, they would have just passed over you. They had many other projects they could have chosen.
Yeah, and that final stage of approval, someone I got information that there were 30 projects and that they were like considering, and they chose 7, and you know the project was within those 7, but they approved 28 local projects and 1 foreign project. Well, we all gotta shoot everybody at the same time. So, but the beautiful thing about this as well is how the industry has come together, and you know, let's work this out. Let's make this happen. Let's make the best films we can, and you know, try not to focus on how inept the government is, how horrible the experience has been up to now, and just say, okay, let's get together, let's talk, let's communicate. You know, let's share resources. That is something that's happening. It's very exciting, and I feel like it's new energy being pumped into the film industry. A new generation, a lot of young people, you know, doing amazing things. And yeah, it's exciting, definitely. Let's see if we have any questions for you. I feel as though I kind of short shrifted the whole part about the market. We were having way too much fun. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle? No questions at all. Well, then we'll just keep talking. The going from you know, working on major projects now to having this budget of $1.3 million basically, does it feel as though you have enough experience to be able to make this project? How do you feel about that? It's definitely very scary. It's definitely, we say in Spanish, you know, deep waters. You can't see the bottom. I connected with a fabulous producer here, Camila. She's a young producer who's also like she comes from a business side. She recently started producing films. And I definitely needed a partner to kind of, you know, help me with that aspect of making a film, because I know from my AD experience, you know, what needs to be done to get all these departments working together, and you know, and budgeting, and making sure that we're thinking about what needs to be thought about in order to make this happen. But you know, the important thing about having you know, a partner, a producing partner, I this is my baby, this is, you know, my film, and it's with my company, but I have to know my limits in terms of what I can accomplish, you know, me. And also I have a responsibility with my directing, you know, with my actors, and you know, I need to be able to step away from managing the budget, from managing the production side of it. Not completely, obviously, I'll be kind of, making decisions, but in terms of like the minutia and the day to day, I trust wholeheartedly in that my producer is making my film hers, and that we're working together in order to kind of, balance the responsibilities and putting together a team that love making movies, that will put their heart and soul into this, that we're all going to be learning and growing and working together and pushing through any problems that come along the way, or any complications, or dealing with the disbursements and everything like that. So I think it's very important. I can't remember which director said, or several directors that said it, you just got to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I've been very consciously doing. I want to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, so that I can trust the production into them, so then I can concentrate in the visual, in what's in front of the camera, and making that, creating that visual language, and making sure that the movie works, right?
We have some questions. We must be very scary, Michelle, because Marilyn, go ahead and ask your question. Welcome.
Sorry, I'm still in my pajamas, so don't make me come on screen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, the grant program in Puerto Rico, is that still open, or is it going to open again soon, or what's the status of that program now? Was it a one-time only thing, or?
Yeah, it was a one-time only thing.
Oh my.
Yeah. It was, you can see the amount of filmmakers that are in Puerto Rico hungry for an opportunity to make their movie. They got over 100 applications. The max budget for each was like 1.7. But those were for features. You could apply to the reimbursement with series for up to $10 million also. So a chunk. That's another topic, but a good chunk. But yeah, it was like how do you say that in English? Kind of like a running game. Like, boom, they announced it, go get it. It's limited. Over 100 submissions, and 29 were selected, and that's it. They say they announced 29 projects of the $70 million that's going to be assigned. They left $4 million because they got a couple of lawsuits that they have to deal with. So it's just a one-time thing, and that's why also the industry is getting together. And it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen afterwards? Like, we got to keep making movies. This is going to be historic, but for what? We have to keep that momentum going. So hopefully the incentives cap gets there's the cap for the tax incentives right now is 38 million, and we get Neon, you get Netflix, you get 3 projects, and they eat that all up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there was a legislative thing to take it to 100 million, but we have an unelected fiscal control board that it has paused that, so there's no incentives right now, and that's how that came in. But in theory, this is what the government wants. In theory, these 29 priors are going to be so successful and so amazing and so powerful and everything that the fiscal control board is going to then approve what the governor signed into law to raise the cap to 100 million. Then that law has it says that 10% of that has to be for local productions.
Right.
So,
and then you can make your second film.
And then I make my second and my third and my fourth, my fifth.
Thank you, Marilyn. Paul, go ahead. Oh, we're not hearing you, Paul. Oh, I heard hearing you a little tiny bit.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Paul. We can't hear you. I'm sorry. Maybe go and come back in and we'll try and get to your question. All right, Joe.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey,
Can everyone hear me? Cool. Major congrats on the grant.
thank you.
It's exciting. So yeah, my question was just about NYU specifically.
Mhm.
I know you went there a little while back now. How much of it, you're clearly successful in progressing and climbing the ladder, it sounds like. How much of that would you attribute to kind of the community you surrounded yourself with at NYU? Like, are you still in touch with them, or did they help kind of excel things? Like, your energy and your work ethic is clearly there, but I'm just curious how much that has to do with NYU or just kind of being who you are.
I think NYU gave me a basis and understanding of how the movie industry works. I got a lot of theory, a lot of, but leaving New York kind of severs those ties. It's you got to be in the community in order to participate or benefit from it, right? I laugh. It's a little bit funny because when I got here and kind of started working, I would present myself like, oh, I studied in NYU. It's like I'm the one that studied in NYU. No one cares. No one knows you. No one cares. All you have is your work ethic. So that was a big slap in the face in the beginning because I got here. I'm a director. I'm gonna start directing. And I went to NYU. Look at my credentials. Nobody cares. But so in terms of getting work or getting climbing the ladder, you have to stay in New York for that. I did get the basic, an understanding, an education. I got an education on film, and that's very different from kind of actually the education that you get on set is something that is very important, and it complements that educational basis, like theoretical or in terms of what you want to focus on. Like if you want to find, if you want to start writing, you take your writing courses. If you want to start directing, you take your directing courses, and kind of build the craft, right? You're building a craft. And NYU was beautiful for that. It was so important for the development of me as a filmmaker. And in order to take advantage of those resources in terms of going into the real world and working on movies and belonging to a community, it's spatial, right? Once I leave and I'm in Puerto Rico and and all the activities that they offer, the alumni that you can keep networking and keep doing that. I mean, that gets a little severed. But that's a choice that I made, and kind of just made my own path in that sense.
Thank you.
Joe's thinking about going to film school. I told him to make a feature film instead.
It's gonna cost you the same.
It costs you the same, yeah. Paul, let's see if we can hear you now.
Sound like you're underwater.
Yeah, it sounds like you're underwater and in a cave. Just for you, Paul, write your question in the chat, and we'll do it that way.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure that's what.
No, I just can't hear. No. Okay, Maeve.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for coming. You've been a delight.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, you've told us about living in Puerto Rico and making movies there. How is it if, for say, an independent American television program wanted to come there to do an episode set there? How is it for that kind of approach to the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the strongest aspect of the industry here, because it's what moves. It's what you know. How do I say, like, at least, you know, all my training, like all my experience has been specifically all of these productions that come for the tax incentives, right? You have to structure your finance plan to include these tax incentives. You have to apply for them, and there's a lot of production services companies that basically dedicate themselves to receive either, whether it be Netflix or whether it be Paramount, or, you know, whatever production that is coming, and run the production, right? I've worked a couple times with not series, but, you know, independent producers making a movie that some scenes they're going to shoot here, and, you know, they ask around, you know, ask for recommendations of local talent, local crew. If there's like a production services structure is not within the budget, right? Because obviously if you hire production services, it'll affect the budget. But you can, you know, you can start making connections directly with producers here, and just run it in an independent way. But production services is what, you know, is the most prevalent form of the industry because of those tax incentives.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks, Maeve. Paul, try again, say something.
All right, can you hear me now? Anything? Nothing? I'm sorry.
Yell and see if we can catch the question. Yeah.
Get closer to the microphone.
It's a simple one. I just got back from Puerto Rico and fell madly in love. So I'm really excited for you to tell Puerto
Thank you.
Rico. Beautiful.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
We're
you.
gonna have lots of Puerto Rican stories.
Yes, it's very exciting.
I'm sorry we can't hear you, Paul. I don't know what's going on with your mic. Anita, go ahead. And Michelle, tell me if you have to go.
I'm okay.
I have to go because I'm teaching a class in a minute.
Oh, well.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Hi, Michelle. This has been a great session.
Thank you.
I love your candidness, and I think the way you talk about how you want to pursue channeling people from your community and telling stories that, you know, come out of, you know, what you are familiar with and where you live. I think that is inspiring. And I am in the process of moving back to my hometown. I haven't lived there in 40 years. So
Wow.
it's, you know, I'm listening to what you say, and I'm taking all that in, because I would like to do the same in terms of explaining or visualizing what my community is. And Joanne talks about, let's see, there's a director who deals with toxic masculinity. And, you know, we all have to find our voice. So I really would like to kind of delve into what it means to be an African-American woman in this country. Historically, right now, you know, because I think that's a whole culture in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I wanted to also ask you, is there any way we could follow you along your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have my Instagram and my Facebook.
Maybe we should raise some money.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if you could put up a couple of the meetings that you have, or, you know, things like that, that would be.
Well, that's a really great question, Anita. And, you know, I put out a newsletter once a month. And my favorite thing in there is, I call it Filmmaker Success Spotlights. So Michelle can also keep us updated through that, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm hoping very soon we're going to be able to announce that she has her 5% and then her next part. So
Yeah. I mean, years ago, I reserved an Instagram handle for the movie. So that it's very interesting how social media, you know, kind of connects, you know, you can connect your fan base or your growing fan base, or like people who want to follow the process of filmmaking, you know, through just, you know, here we are doing this and here we are doing that, you know, it brings you into the process, which is exciting. I'm not very good at it. I go like la 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 la. It's like, oh wait, hang on, I completely forgot what I was doing. So definitely, that's definitely something that I kind of have to learn a little bit and kind of get into that mindset and routine of, like, you know, keeping people like informed and bring them into part of the process. And actually, the last short film that I did, that, you know, Joanne helped me out so much with the crowdfunding campaign, does that basically automatically, because when you do a crowdfunding campaign, and you got to keep your people who supported you informed, right? And so that was a nice little kind of peek into what that could look like, and what that could be, and, you know, how we can, you know, bring in the people into the process, and, you know, share those awesome little moments. And you got to document it anyway. You got to, you know, keep a living record of what's going on, and you know, keep people excited, because, you know, you keep getting followers, and once the movie comes out, all those
Right.
followers are going to go watch the movie, right?
Right.
So
I'm going to have to bring it to a close. I want to get Sam's last question. We will.
Oh, but what's that handle
Well-
for the Instagram for your?
My personal one, I'll write it in the chat. The one for the movie is not active yet, but I'll write it here for everyone, so you can follow me.
Well, Michelle, let's make sure that we put the link to the crowdfunding campaign in the next newsletter, and people can follow that way as well.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Anita. Go ahead, Sam. And then I got to go.
Yeah, it'll be quick. I just wanted to say congratulations. I'm also an AD, and I think that we're a special breed of directors. I'm a DJ AD too. And it's and you know, we have a work ethic like nobody else.
Yeah.
You know, and I think for me, the thing that always just stopped me, I think, was a little bit my humility, because, you know, I always felt like I was the workhorse, and I just had to really put the hat on and really believe in my storytelling ability. And everyone told me not to be an AD, of course. But I wouldn't be making films if I wasn't an AD. I wouldn't have the contacts. So I just want to congratulations, and it's an amazing hurdle that you got over. And your name's actually familiar. I may have heard your name around circles in the DGA or something.
Oh,
but
cool.
But anyway, congratulations, and I'm really pulling for you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I've got my phone ringing somewhere, but I'm going to have to go, and in 15 minutes we're going to be starting a class, a 2-day class that I'm teaching, called Finding Investors for Your Next Film. If you've already registered, you will have that Zoom link, which will be a different Zoom link to this one. So it will be in your email. If you have any problems, email to tfl@filmmakersuccess.com if you have any any technical issues, but you should all have your Zoom link. Thank you so much, Michelle. What a pleasure.
Thank you,
We always have so
Joanne.
much fun.
Yay!
And it's
Thank
just,
you, everyone.
it's so exciting that you have received this well-deserved grant. And yeah, we all want to be following your filmmaking story. So everybody who's going to be in the class, I'll see you in, oh, and one of the things that's going to happen in the class, I'm going to be talking about marketing, and I found something that I think is both brilliant and within an independent filmmaker budget that I'm introducing everybody to today. So we'll get there later. Anyway, everybody who's going to be in class, see you later, and thanks everybody for coming. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Emily. Bye-bye.